Yeah. Hi, my name's Ella Bennett, and I am a filmmaker, film director in film and television. I got into filmmaking when I was like 14, I would say. I did like sketches with my mum's like family friend's daughter I said cousin in another interview, but I see her as my cousin, with a Toshiba camcorder. And then that broke, so I had to like save up to buy a new one, working on Saturdays. And then I say my official like proper starting was at 15 when I filmed a documentary about Southwark Estates. My school was doing a diploma for the second year running ever called Creative Media Diploma. So after getting rejected from the Brit in music twice, I did the Creative Media Diploma instead of like choosing options like French, Spanish, etc. I did a diploma from year 10 to year 11. And during that time, I literally, basically just tried out different things in creative industry really, and I really got drawn to filmmaking. And there was an assistant there, I wish I remember her name, who said, for my final project, what do I want to do? What do I want to make? And I said, well, I remember seeing a documentary on television, and it had like black guys in hoodies and subtitles, and I just felt like, first of all, why were there subtitles? I was questioning, I was very inquisitive. And then secondly, I was like, why are they always depicting black males in hoods? And this was back in like 2010. So then that's when I made the whole documentary about Southwark Estates, interviewed youth workers. It was almost like a vox pop, basically talking head, really. And that was kind of what kind of drew me to do it, because of the reactions I got from that documentary. And I used that documentary, handed it in to the Brit School, and I managed to get into the Brit School with that documentary in media. So that's kind of how I started. I started from just being inquisitive and trying to challenge stereotypes on screen, really. I wanted to go Brit School because of the collaborative experience that I would have. They had theatre strand, dance strand, musical theatre strand, art and design, loads of different other creative strands. And then also the diploma was like radio, one unit, and photography the next, factual programming. So there was so many different like experiences in the creative industry. So by the end of it, you kind of know for sure what you wanted to do, which some people are sort of figuring that out in university and stuff like that. But I figured it out from doing college and doing that diploma. So that's where I wanted to go. Yeah. My parent was my mum. She was the one that encouraged me to do the diploma in year 10. Actually, yeah, she was like, you like a bit of art, you like to draw, you're really good at art, you love music, and this creative media diploma tries to explore all of those and at the surface. So she was like, why not try that diploma and see what's going. But it was only its second year. It was a baby. They hadn't really. I went to the charter school in North Dulwich. They hadn't really. It was a state school. It's called. Yeah, they hadn't really done much of that. It was very sport heavy in the school. So I was very fortunate to have had that diploma, because a lot of people were like, what? Year 10, I was doing languages and stuff, but I was messing about, creating. So my mum was the one that really prompted me to be like, do it, because don't worry about music. I was crying when I got rejected. It's like, what am I going to do? Not thinking about all the things that I do, stay up late drawing cartoons and, doing all these creative things. Like, it was all in my subconscious. But I was so passionate about music that I was so blind, thinking, oh, this is why I will be a superstar. And my mum was like, no, you're creative, so embrace that. I have a very encouraging, motivational mother, which was very fortunate as well. During Brit School, the first thing that was like, oh, I'm at the Brit School, was when we went to go to the Brit Awards. Students just got tickets to go places. Then I went to the Paralympics, because I was like one of the few students they chose to go to the Paralympics in 2012. I also did an exchange you know, they do it at uni. We did it in sixth form. So I went to Belgium in Liège to actually look into their industry, which is bare. There's hardly anything in the schools for creative, you know, experiences. It's very, you know, academic there. So that was a really amazing insight. And so yeah, that was kind of one of the highlights, as well as just being able to make music videos for artists there. I did a lot of music videos outside during that time. So I self-shot music videos for like a year in that time. Earned about $1,000 within the year. I thought, oh, good, cash in hand, you know what I mean? Rappers from South and all that. I did a lot of that during the time of being at the Brit, and then also did short films now and again, did music videos now and again. But they also had awards called the Golden, I can't remember the name of it now, but they would do award ceremonies as well. It was literally, what I remember is just, I guess, struggling with the writing side, and I didn't find out I was moderately dyslexic till I was at uni. So that was one thing I'd say was also quite interesting, where it was kind of not really outed as that, you know, I had moderate dyslexia. It was more just I have learning difficulties. So that was the other experience I would say that was happening there. And then I did a short film called Haribo's at the age of 18, which was my last year. Handed that into festivals because they were very big on, you know, you must hand in your films into festivals. You know, they also did, we did a whole unit on American film studies as well, African American film studies, looking at the African American diaspora in the US, and we did a whole essay on that. So there was a lot of different, they were trying to be, you know, they were woke before it was a fashion, you know what I mean? But yeah, so I got it into Limelight Film Awards, the Haribo's film that I did. Nominated, and then yeah, after that I went to Ravensbourne, and I did a fast track course. So I did a degree in digital film for 2 years instead of 3. So whilst at Ravensbourne University, studying digital film and doing a degree in 2 years instead of 3, I would say it was very intense. So I didn't have a summer, so I had the first year was as normal, and then when everyone went off to, you know, their holiday, me and another 19 other students stayed over from July, all of July and August, to do our second year basically, and then I just went straight into third year in September, October, and graduated November 2015. So that's correct, yeah. So, and I finished all my units in May 2015. So it was very intense. At one point, I told my head of lecture that I can't do this anymore, and they said, "Do you want to pay another $9,000 a year?" And I was like, "Yeah, no, I don't." So that was, but I was encouraged by a lecturer called Ben Malaby. He saw my showreel, and by that time, I'd been doing loads of random shoots and stuff outside of college, and he said that I'd be bored if I did 3 years based on my showreel. So that's when I was like, oh, someone else in my class applied for the same course, so if they can do it, I can do it, you know. So then that's when I went into the deep end, and yeah, took a leap, and it was great because some people are like, oh, should I go uni, should I not? It's up to, obviously people should be open to all different, you know, experiences, apprenticeships, mentorships. But for me, it was just great to be able to practice being in different groups of people, working with different groups of people, because we literally were, like the first unit, every 2 weeks we would have to pair up with 5 different groups every 2 weeks, so to shoot a film. So, you know, 5 people, shoot, 2 weeks, edit, cut, okay, next. So I had about 3 different shorts I did in the 6 weeks, so it was really kind of training ground, I'd say. When did filmmaking become real? It never feels real until you get a lump sum fee. I think that would be when I say, yeah, I'm doing bits, you know. But I guess where it felt like I was doing something was my first commission. I think it was like a random acts, they're called random acts scheme, but there's like different organisations that run the scheme. So you get to make a short, and then it gets broadcasted on to Channel 4's sister channel called Random Acts. So I think that was when, because it was a $4,000 budget, you had 3 different partners, so executives, Arts Council, Fly Film and Screen South, oversee the whole process of you making it from idea to distribution. And that was an amazing opportunity. The London organisation that partner with Random Acts are called Stop, Play, Record, but they have different ones. So they have Stop, Play, Record, Screen South, and then there's another branch. And Arts Council oversee it, basically. So that was a scheme that I did, I guess, in 2016 May time. In terms of United Agents, I did a film called Last Leg. That was something that I crowdfunded with a producer that I met at my university who was a year below me, and she produced the film, ran the campaign on Indiegogo, raised funds via Indiegogo. We raised it up to £700. We needed another 300, so she swam one length every day to raise the additional amount that we needed on GoFundMe. So we ended up raising a total of maybe 1,400 or something like that. And then I had to, we went over budget, so I had to put in a bit more money from my personal savings. We got the kit from our school, a university, but they actually had us pitch, got someone from London Film Festival to oversee the pitch, and it was just a training experience of what it would be like if you were to go out in the industry and have to get money for a film. So I had to pitch just for the kit, which we got. I had to send out my treatment to various different students at the school to be a part of the experience. So doing that film, handing it into festivals, my lecturer, there was 5 of them, one of my lecturers picked 6 students to go to Berlin to do it. It was a part of a program called British European Talent Slate, where you get to do a week masterclass crash course in film and television, talking about the whole, getting industry professionals in. So that was, so that happened. And then as soon as I finished uni, one of the only female lecturer in my year recommended me onto a mentorship scheme, which I went to interview for, not thinking anything of it. And then one of the panelists happened to be head of production at BBC Comedy, who emailed me straight after the interview and said, "You're really great, you're amazing. Can you come and work for BBC Comedy for 3 months?" And I was like, of course. I was working at an estate agent at the time, just as an assistant. So I'm not gonna say no, am I? So went for that. And so during that time, I also won the mentorship scheme, and that was with Vice. So I was mentored an hour every month by a creative director called Adam Bracegirdle, and was there an hour every month just chatting about film and stuff. And he just said that you need to be very clear online, your brand, and even if it's your imagery, what's going to strike people with your thumbnails, and keep consistent with the work that you do. That's all that it was all about. But my 3 months at BBC, this is all happening simultaneously. So my 3 months at BBC Comedy ended up being 7. So my contract ended in March 2016. And during that time, I also screened it at Latimer Talks and other places. So I think it was getting the film out there. And then I think by June 2017, I screened it at Proptar, which is again another exciting creative industry a network event. Then they had an exec there of 11 films watched Last Leg, where my film screened at Proptar, and said, "Are you agented?" By this time, I think I was 2 years out of uni, maybe, or something like that, just after watching that one film. And he said, "Are you agented?" And I said no. And then he recommended me to one, and it happened to be Giles Smart at United, so I've been with United Agents for a year now. And that's kind of how it came about. The thing is, the film went everywhere. In terms of like festivals, it got into certain places, but it was the most intimate screenings that had the most randomest people at the events. The festivals weren't the ones that I think drew professionals. It was ones that were just random pop-up interactive networking events. It was the networking events that ended up having a lot of really professional people in the room. So with the Random Act scheme, I applied, as I said, through Screen South, and they cover all of the entries for those who are from the south of England. So I technically wasn't eligible for it, but because I didn't know that was the situation, they still shortlisted me. But the process is, once you've handed in a treatment, just a write-up of your idea. Mine was very vague, and it just said, oh, I want to use this music, and but obviously I was explaining the idea around the concept, but you don't need to write a script or anything. Then you go through to a development day where they sit down with all the creatives and get others to pitch your idea, based on if you've communicated it well. And then the third stage is that the third stage is getting interviewed with the partners, and by then you should have a producer. You either have to recruit them yourself or they find one, and you have to have an interview saying how realistic is it in the next 3 or 2 months to shoot this on $4,000. Is this really possible? During the second stage of development and the third stage, which is the interview, I had to write a script in that time, which was like 3 pages. And then they shortlisted me, hooray! And then they did, I think, about 3 to 4 days in sort of crash course. They've got industry professionals in to, again, hash out your idea. Then they get you to go to Molyneux and talk about sound design. It's a very experimental heavy, I'd say, scheme. And so that is the process, essentially. It's not as easy as in, obviously if you don't get in, it's like, what do I do? But in terms of your concept, it's just writing up your idea, what you want to make, because they tell you all the guidelines. I read the guidelines thoroughly before applying, really understanding what they are wanting, these schemes and stuff. But I've actually created a spreadsheet of funding opportunities and stuff, because so I'm willing to share that. But because there's just not many people know about it. Not many people know about these opportunities. So watching people, I think when I watched people pitch my idea, it was fantastic because it showed that I was on point. You know what I'm saying? And that was from university. That's just, the thing is, practice makes perfect. My mum always emphasizes that. And at university, we had to do presentation after presentation after presentation. And I think having that experience of having to talk to people in front of people, get all nervous and, this is my idea, you think you've said everything you want to say, and half of it's still clogged in your head where you've not actually said everything. And then we had this strict deadline in the third year of 50 words for a synopsis, no longer than that. Your scripts has to be tight, your script has, so all of that experience of thorough, interrogation of ideas, my edits would be thoroughly, looked at by lecturers. Oh, why did you edit it like this? All of that nitpicking was what made me sort of trained up to be able to, it was nerve-wracking, of course, but it was great watching someone else because it shows that you communicated it well, and it shows that that person also got it, even if they're your competitor, they still were able to, this is great, I think, and it was a really, really healthy environment, which is what schemes do. But when you're out in the real world having to pitch, it's not going to be the same. They're just going to expect you to have the visual treatment, 5-minute go as a director. But in schemes, it's a safe haven to practice and to, to make trial and errors. So I'd say it was really great. I'd say the differences between, being freelance and then, I guess, being represented is being freelance, in a way, and also I'm still working full time, so that transition of getting a commission hasn't really happened yet. But in terms of the differences, I guess eyes look to you a little bit closer. They pay a little bit more attention. At United Agents, I guess there's certain funding opportunities that, yeah, and not unless it's kind of an unspoken rule that, you know, they kind of want to know if you're agented or not. Sometimes it's for legal reasons. They need to know that there's someone there to negotiate your fee if you're doing a feature film, or if you're getting commissioned to do a television program. They want to know that they're dealing with someone that they can liaise with you, with someone to deal with your actual fee. So I think that's on a professional level, I guess. And then also the difference I've found is just being into the most obscure events, networking events. Again, it's just getting a bit more into other events that you may not have had access to before. It makes you more interconnected with people that might be watching you, but may not know how to reach you, or want to speak to you face to face, but yeah, don't know how to do that without you having an agent. I would say how a new director would get an agent would definitely be to not be shy about feedback, to not be scared of presenting your work. Obviously with the social media digital era, there's this kind of habit to just upload and then read feedback. But I think what people would be missing is the face-to-face contact. If it wasn't to meet that exec, he would not have cared. He'd be, oh, nice film. But he doesn't know the person behind it. He doesn't know the person, the brand, the voice behind the film. So he would have watched that film. I would not have been there. And then he would have been like, I wonder if that person's agented. Oh, well, not here. So don't really care, do I? Whereas if you're there, oh, you're the film. It gives a presence. It gives a renaissance to the film because they know someone was behind it. It's a figure behind it. So I would say hand your films into as many festivals as you possibly can. It is expensive. Mine came up to £400 in terms of entries, and that's not even, that's, you know, some people spend thousands into festival entries, so I don't want to sit here and act like that's just a joke, like it's hippity-dockery, and it is quite, you know, problematic in that way. But there are free festivals, and there are social networking events that do screen here, screen there, Latimer Talks, Propter, you know, there are other places that don't charge you to enter your film, and you show it, you go up afterwards, there's a name, to put a name to a face. So that's how I got agented. You know, I also got agented through recommendation. It is important, which our Channel 4 shows. So it is important to just be around at these events and have your card, have your business cards ready for because it works. Even if you ain't got no change on you ain't got no money, or the few places you go to screen your film is worth it. Last Leg is about, it's about Raina, a aspiring young teenage swimmer facing domestic abuse from her father. She's aiming to win first place at a swimming competition at her school, but with a father that controls the world around her, the goal to win is tested. The inspiration behind Last Leg was based on my mother and her experiences in her childhood. I worked with a writer at my school, at my university, who was passionate about writing, and I script edited the script. I'd heard this story for a while, so I think it sounds a bit odd, but I treated it as a job. I treated it as, I'm a director, directing a script, making sure that this is communicated as well as possible. I'd say it was hard, not writing, but directing a scene in the film, which it sort of became real that, oh good, it's like I was everything that my mom describes, from the wall painting, you know, to the you know, the way that the sort of color schemes, the color tones was what drew my mood that like to feel what she experienced because of how descriptive she was of the time in the 80s and what the sort of wallpaper looked like, and the clothes that she wore, the fact that she had to wear hand-me-downs sometimes. And so there was a scene where I felt, oh God, I can imagine what it'd be like to have to be in that situation. So I think that was the hardest part. It was directing a scene, but I had such a supportive crew and sensitive crew that were respectful. Sometimes people like to mess about and be unprofessional. So with something so sensitive, you've got to have such a professional crew. It sounds obvious, but sometimes you think your mates, chilling with your mates, but none of them were friends, or none of them were people that I was necessarily tight with. It was all professional people in my school, university, really, that I just said, I really love your work. So I think having that environment where everyone was very respectful kind of eased it being as hard. But I treated it as a job. I didn't think of it as my baby. I always looked at it as a brief, just because it is, you're committing a service at the end of the day. So you have to treat it that way, no matter how personal it is. As a filmmaker. Well, the first time she watched it, she said, "Oh, great, that's a good film, well done." And then the second time she watched it, she was like, "Oh, really encapsulated the 80s, the sort of mood of the 80s. Me and the cinematographer used motivational light of the sodium lights outside when it gets dark as motivational light for the interior scenes." She said, "Oh yes, I really feel how you've encapsulated it." And then the third time she went with a friend of ours from church, and they watched it. In the credits, they were like, "I wonder who that's about." And my mum said, "Me." And then the woman just started crying, and then my mum just started crying. And she commented on sort of a cover photo on my Facebook saying, "This helped me so much. Thank you so much." So it was therapeutic for her to see it back. It seems like it would be the most painful thing, but it's almost like you're seeing a mirror. It's like it's like you're being able to lift off that memory that has otherwise haunted you. That's kind of what my mum described it to be. So yeah, I've written a lot of notes about how important I think film is. We're in a very weird era. I'm not going to say politically we're in a scary place in 2018, but I think ethically films are important because it can create a cultural shift in a community, in politics. It's culture. It surrounds and it is a pivot of culture. So I think they're important because they ethically can. Some people learn through reading, others through watching, some through listening. And people have emotional thresholds when watching something, just like they're listening to music. It can have an impact on them emotionally. So I think it's important to be accurate, to be authentic, and to be nuanced in film. And film is important because it can create a cultural shift in a community. Having them think differently, having them be able to open up in conversation. Conversation can bring change. So that's how passionate I think film is. And we shouldn't see it as la-di-da, I'm so lucky, I'm so fortunate. It's taken me 3 years to develop a feature film about mental health. And I've been reading about 4 different academic books, as well as interviewing people with the illness of schizophrenia. I don't feel lucky at all. It's a service, it's a job, just like a surgeon, except we're not necessarily physically saving lives, but it is a service you're committing, just like fashion. You feel good when you wear some clothing, you feel different, you feel something, and that's the same with film. It's important because you can impact people's lives and you can change their lives for the better, as long as you know what you're handling and what you're dealing with at the time. So that's what I would say. At the moment, I'm working on a feature film. It started off as a short film at university, 5 pages, with a writer who then said they don't want to work on it any longer. So I developed it into 25 pages, handed it into the Screen Arts Institute that develop your script to a feature in a year. they said there were too many genres, so I had to go back away in my cubbyhole, and so, I decided to just wait it out and wait to meet more people to work with, to build my network. So I eventually met a producer, and we worked on the script. He said he liked the idea and he thinks that it's current. That this was in 2016. And he said, but you need a writer. So I had met a writer who had been sending me stuff for a year, but I had been very tentative to work with writers because of my previous experiences haven't always been good. Last Egg was great, but I'm saying generally it hasn't always been. I've been doing loads of shorts anyway. So he said yes. I asked him, this writer that I'd met at an event a year ago, if he would join us on this mad journey, and he said yeah. So July 2016, we sat down, we hashed it out, me, the writer, the producer, and then the producer's like, well, the deadline for this funding scheme is in 21 days. Can you write the script in 21 days? And he said, yeah, okay. Took on that challenge, 85 pages in 21 days. He's got 2 kids and a wife, a job, and he did that in 21 days. So we just thought we wouldn't get in because we just rushed it, really. We just wanted to get an opportunity, wanted to get our foot in the door. And then we heard back in December, we got shortlisted out of 150 applicants to, get shortlisted for Film London, Microwave. So that was, we had got on to the first round, and during that time they had sales distributors, they had sales agents, they had BFI come in, they had a lot of people come in and do talks about story and the importance and how is it marketable, what is your story about, can you do it, whatever. So that was basically what we went through. And then we spent another year. By the end of 2017, we were at our 6th draft. We had to get a co-writer on board, and we had to get a script editor. And because of it was intense, the feature film was intense. So then we applied for another scheme, which we got shortlisted for in Berlin. And we pitched for funding in Berlin in February this year. And we managed to seek interest from 2 partners. So we're now currently, it's not really spoken about much, but we're currently waiting to hear back from a 3rd funder to see if we could get it fully commissioned. So that journey was very hard. We did it, a lot of it was independent. Seeking advice externally now and again. The producer, who's actually from New Jersey, African-American guy, who lives in London. And it's been incredible experience. But I should tell you what it's about. Extreme work culture. It's about mental health in the workplace, sexism in the workplace. It's a psychological thriller. It's set in one location. So that's as much as I can say about it. It's called Blue Marble, before known as Beneath the Mind. So that's, taken about 3 years to develop.